As much competition as I like at this point. I've been I kind of echo what I said in the spring in terms of trouble and Delaire back there, and then Pat Fields kind of established at this point, and so credit goes to them in that sense. So there's some positives there. Again, the negative side is I don't feel the push from that kind of that second level. And so in any event, and it could be a guy has an injury or two or something like that, kind of banged up and all that stuff. But those guys have done a nice job thus far in fall camp and continued on from what they did in the spring.
How does Norwood's injury change things for you guys?
Well, certainly I think it changes things. I'm sick for him. He worked his tail off since we had a chance to start working together in January. He was kind of the Swiss Army knife for us in the spring. Reminded that there's a Saturday in the spring where we played corner for us, safety for us, and nickel for us, all the same practice. And oh, by the way, we're just installing the new defense. So had a tremendous summer and had a couple good days of fall camp. It's just unfortunate what happened. I will say this: he's going to be a tremendous college football player, and so that's the as you look into the future, couldn't be more excited about him. And I know he's one of those guys that will attack the rehab and come back and actually be better from it. In the meantime, it's opportunities for other guys to, kind of their number is called.
Nickel, but who else you got there right now? And how do you feel about the depth?
Yeah, I think I commend Buki up until this point in terms of fall. I think if there's several guys that have kind of taken leaps from their performance in spring, and he'd probably be number one on that list. And I think I believe he'd echo that to you in terms of just playing more consistently and playing with more technique, fundamentals, all those things. So I commend him on that. But Sylvie's down there a little bit, and there's a number of other guys that will kind of by committee behind them. Jay Crudell, freshman, get some work down there. No, that is like a lot of the spots. It's kind of a position to be named later in terms of who that guy is. But at this point, been pleased with Buki.
Would you be kind of willing to take us into your meeting room process with players? Because players talk about what you're asking of them, the strip counts and naming the strip king and things like that. How important is that time with these guys, especially now when you're trying to get your system installed and what you're all about?
Well, I think the exciting part is as you transition in the fall, the issue that you have in spring is there's nothing that you want to leave kind of off their plate in terms of you want to tell them a million things. Every day you want to tell them another thing, but you also got to talk about football. And so you probably spend too much time on scheme in that first spring because you almost have to attack it as if everybody's a freshman from a scheme standpoint. But in the end, what's paramount to your success is kind of everything else. It's not just the scheme aspect of things. And so the fall camp, when you have them, morning, noon, and night, it kind of gives you that little bit more of a window to kind of dig deeper into who we are and what we are, and probably a better way to put it at this point, who we want to be and what we want to be. So in any event, that's a daily, we'll have a couple meetings a day as a defense, as a unit. Every time we have a chance to huddle on the field and have some type of communication, we take advantage of it. And that's just, building, kind of a culture, and that word's thrown out so much. It's an ecosystem. It's you gotta walk in the defensive meeting room. It's got to have a feel to it, and an expectation for what that content's going to be, and a group of guys that kind of all buy into. And so I'm very pleased with the buy-in, but that's an ongoing daily thing, and we'll continue through the season.
Trey Brown talked about the defensive line and the linebackers being not just a surprise, but playing really well so far. What exactly have you seen of them in your eyes?
Well, and I'd like to think if you pulled the defensive line and the linebackers, they would say the same thing about Trey Brown. And that's obviously every level of defense. But I think guys embrace the idea of playing fast. And so much of it, and we keep trying to tell them fast mistakes, make a mistake, make it 1,000 miles an hour, where we can correct. Any issues. If you're in the wrong gap, be as close to the quarterback you can in the wrong gap type of thing. We'll kind of handle the X and O's part, but it's a lot harder to. It's a lot harder to try to speed someone up if they're not willing to go 1,000 miles an hour. So anyway, that's probably the biggest thing in those two groups. We see so much offense from our guys, and what a tremendous advantage is for us. If you handle it the right way. There's obviously two stories you can tell yourself. You can tell yourself it's the biggest disadvantage on a day-to-day basis because we couldn't possibly have any success. Or you say, well, geez, what an advantage to have an opportunity to see so many different looks and schemes and elite players executing it. So in any event, I think both the front level of defense and the back level of defense, I think they've begin to embrace kind of the challenge and the opportunity that those guys give us. And slowly but surely we're playing faster and faster, which again, we've got a long way to go, but that's encouraging through 8-9 days.
Pat Fields was saying that as you guys emphasize strip counts and all those things,
Yeah.
the offensive guys are holding onto the ball a little bit tighter. I mean, is that sort of a natural benefit maybe for your offense that they're thinking about it too?
Well, if you're asking me, I think it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
If the offensive players aren't getting frustrated, we're not doing it right.
Yeah.
If and we kind of we look at it and you say, if an offensive player as soon as he catches the football kind of turns an old school fullback, and then two-hand clutching that football, then we're having an impact. They feel us, and so we keep track of it. We're almost 400. We call them strip attempts. Almost 400 strip attempts up to this point, over 40 strip attempts a day, and a true strip attempt is with the willingness to get the ball out. And so by the time we play game one, we should be right around 1,000 strip attempts on legit ball carriers, not a guy holding on the ball and someone just ripping it out because
Yeah.
he says it's a takeaway drill.
Yeah.
Every play of practice turns into one. So that's a learned skill. That's a learned trait. It's no different than a basketball player shooting 1,000 shots. That's one of the skills and traits on defense. And so we make it an emphasis. It's hard to get it out. That's why it has to be emphasized as much as it is. But the guys have been embracing that up to this point.
Hear about the strip attempts, getting the ball out. How do you get more interceptions? I know in past your defenses, you kind of split them in half and half. You get 10 fumble recoveries, 10 picks. How do you focus on that side of it?
Well, I think number one is, we talk about eye control, making sure you have your eyes where they belong. If I'm in a zone concept defense, I have my eyes on the quarterback, and I got to make sure that, the flash of an opposing jersey doesn't dictate, kind of where I go and when I go there. And in a man concept, that quarterback doesn't mean anything to me. It's about being where that receiver goes. So in any event, I think eye control is number one. I think number two, being in a top-down mentality, making sure, if I'm in any type of trail position, and you can say it a couple different ways, but it's a panic situation. Well, the last thing I'm worried about is that football. I'm worried about, chasing after a guy. And so, from one eye control, and then number two, being top down and everything that you do, you have a chance to then attack the football. I think the final phase of that, we talk about all the time, is expectation. You got to expect the ball's coming your way. Every play's your play to make. The minute that you don't think that is a missed opportunity. And I always, laughs about when a defensive player drops the football. That's why he plays defense, quote unquote. And a lot of these guys were high school receivers, high school running backs, and everything else. I don't know that they got worse hands. The difference between us and the receiver expects the football and we don't. And so that changes things, And so, and then just, really the playmaking expectation, and that includes the run game. Obviously expecting to make a tackle, but also when that ball's in the air, you're expected to minimum get one hand on it, best case scenario, get two hands on it. And you can't do that if you're chasing after guys.
You talk about speed as it relates to the defensive linemen. What kind of improvement have you seen in that regard, especially with those interior guys now versus the spring?
Well, I think, Coach Tibbs does a phenomenal job with those guys up front. I think just the idea of instead of playing in the men, playing in the gaps, and that would be, it's simple and we want it to be simple. I think the guys kind of understand that running off the football as opposed to oozing off the ball, and expecting contact, but more so expecting to be in the backfield and then attacking when contact ultimately is made. I'm in the gap, or I'm going to put that guy's body in the gap, and that's a violent pursuit. But again, I think that's probably kind of the biggest thing, and those guys, seeing the impact on a day-to-day basis in terms of TFL, and only takes a couple for a guy to kind of the light bulb to go off and say, well, this is kind of better than just running into an offensive guard all day long. So, but that's been the biggest thing. And again, Coach Thibodeau does a phenomenal job with those guys.
You have a guy like Ruffin McNeil on your staff that's got all that experience.
Yeah.
Is that how valuable is that, especially a guy like you?
Sure, and yeah, it's been tremendous to have Coach Ruff on our side, and know a lot of people that know Coach Ruff. I've heard a lot of Coach Ruff stories over the years, but this is my first time working with him, and he's the guys respect him. He does a tremendous job, coaching his particular room. Like big picture stuff is all the guys on the staff. Certainly he has just a real kind of eye in the sky type of view on everything, perspective. When you've been a head coach and obviously a coordinator for many years as well, kind of big picture stuff is not lost on him. Sometimes that's if you're not careful as a position coach, you can kind of have blinders on just how it impacts your particular group. Or my group had a good day, so. If the other groups didn't, then what's the big deal? My guys were fine, and again, he has more of a big picture view of things, and so no, it's tremendous, and excited to have him have a chance to work with him.
Alex, how did you make the decision whether to call the game from the field or the box? Was that a sort of deliberate process that you went through?
Well, it was, and initially when I first became coordinator, I liked the idea of being up top and kind of being in my own world. And really, to give people perspective, and obviously you guys have seen games from up top. It's almost a video game feel. You can't, touch it. You can't. But you have and you can't obviously communicate with the guys one-on-one. But you see everything, and so you're not dependent on someone else's eyes for issues that you see. And so did that for a year, and then kind of in that second year. Like the idea of the guys getting the same voice that they hear all week on the sideline. I think sometimes too. There's a number of different ways to do it, but kind of we're all in it together type of feel. And then I think specific to the actual game itself, from my standpoint, is being on the sideline. It is sometimes distraction's good. I kind of found is when I came down, I didn't think I would like it. I didn't think it would be a positive, but felt that in that particular situation was the right thing to do. And the thing I found out was, less me time was okay. Kind of get out of my head a little bit, and all of a sudden, from that view, it's football. Sometimes from the upper top view, you can make it bigger than it is, type of thing. So anyway, that's just me in particular, but that kind of played into it.
Alex, that's your safety spot. You've got some great competition going on there. How's that coming along? Who's kind of coming along with you?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is, we wish there was more competition. We kind of have, two guys in Delaren and Pat that kind of established themselves at this point. And we need some guys from whether that's second group, third group, and really depth chart wise, they're all, if you're not on one, you're two. I mean, you're gonna have an opportunity to compete, but we need those guys kind of pushing that top group. I mean, everybody's better with competition. And so, across the board, that would be my, and certainly we have to have competition at some spots, but maybe not as much as we need. And that is something we got to get corrected. It's a message for, some of those guys that don't find themselves with the first group at this moment is, if you're just a two by default, then, and we wouldn't put you in a game, then you're just that. You're just a depth chart guy. You're not truly a rotational player for us. So we need more of those guys to step up. We got to get our best 11, and we got to find a way to get 22 guys we put in the game.
Alex, I mean, you've got your position that you coach, but you're also the defensive coordinator. What was the process for you like, kind of getting with other guys on the defense? Maybe guys that were veterans like Neville or Kenneth to kind of help you kind of change that culture a little bit.
Well, I think part of it is you do have some guys that played a lot of snaps. And that's the one thing, for me in this situation, a little different than the situation we took over for at Washington State, because it was such a struggle as a team at that point. And the difference here is, the stage that these guys have been on is everything that you want in our sport. And so, you got to say, okay, well, the standard has been met from a defensive standpoint. However, you'd be inappropriate on my part to not give those guys credit for some of the atmospheres and the moments they've been in. I mean, so often you talk about what guys haven't been under the lights yet. They haven't been on the big stage yet and all that. I mean, you look up and these guys haven't been on. The bulk of the guys you know, like the Nevs and even a young guy, Ronnie Perkins, who they've been in the moment, man. They've been the elite of the elite in college football.